You're listening to the Plane Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carla Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
And so many more people besides.
I know. Hello and welcome to episode number 206 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me, as always, in the Barn studio this week is my co-host, Matt Smith.
Hello, everyone. Hello. How are we all? How are we? Sorry for the slightly tardy start in the show. We're actually struggling with actual snow.
We have had actual snow. The full word snow, not just snow. We've had snow this week here in the UK. And I think the whole of the UK has been very, very badly affected by the snow this week. But managing to join us this week, as always, is our illustrious co-host, Mr. Neville Bounds.
Yes, very snowy in Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire here today. And good to be here though. And I thought I wouldn't go into London today because I wasn't in the mood for messing with the trains and all the rest of it. So I worked from home, which turned out to be a very good move.
Indeed. In fact, actually, earlier in the day, Nev took some footage with his marvellous new camera, which I'm gonna run for you now. I mean, it really is. The banana is looking very under snow, though, it has to be said. If you're listening to the audio version, then if you watch the YouTube stream, you can actually see. It's quite snowy and very unpleasant in your part of the world, sir.
I had a bit of a dirty banana, and we didn't that, do we?
No.
Indeed. We do love to see the cat
there.
Very good.
Indeed. So it's it is a lovely part of. I'm a bit bored of it now, though. I know we've had it for 3 days.
Yeah.
So I'm bored of the white stuff now.
That's enough.
I don't want
the
to
snow's been a bit. We've had a good dusting, it's safe to say, here in the East Anglia.
Yeah.
So joining us as well in the Barn studio this week, he's back again joining us here, and it's the Prince of Harpjet, and it is Eoin.
Hey guys, great to be back, and had a bit of a tough time in the snow.
Eoin, you must, with Harpjet and stuff, obviously, because you're based here in the UK, you must have been having some real difficulties with flights now in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't been too bad, but the ones in and out of Ireland have been really affected. Ireland has had like a critical or a red warning or whatever it means that basically has shut the whole of the country down, including our head offices and that sort of thing. So Stats is picking up the slack a little bit on that, and it's been a very, very busy week.
Oh,
yeah.
But with the aircraft that you use in the fleet, you've got your own steps, haven't you, on your aircraft? So you haven't got to worry about having steps brought up to the aircraft by frozen. With frozen
hydraulic trucks, essentially.
Yeah. So you're lucky in that respect.
No, it's really handy to have the built-in steps, and I suppose the main reason for that is to let us have those quick turnaround times.
Yeah.
And,
but you're safe anyway. When you've had a good week.
Yeah, I had a reasonably good week, and now time for a nice bit of downtime.
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, the original plan was actually to do a bit of learning to drive
in the snow. That would be a good driving lesson.
But do you know what? Still up for a challenge.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not too sure.
I don't know if me and my car are up for it. I have to be honest, but there we are. Yeah.
So also joining us in the Barn studio this week, it's a very special guest host joining us on the show. And for those of you who came to the Goodwood meet-up, you may well have seen this young man there. And we're going to welcome him for the first time into the Barn studio, Armando.
Absolutely excited to be here. I think any listener would just, kill to be here in the Barn studio, actually seeing the behind the scenes. It's awesome.
Yeah,
so thanks for having me.
Usually kills most people's illusions, it has to be said, watching the chaos.
No, not at all. Completely impressed.
So how are things with you, Armando? Are you enjoying this winter weather?
Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat. I tried to fly on Wednesday for work, and we gave it a shot, but the weather and the snow was just not good. So we've actually had a couple days off. The us and the RAF guys that we were working with were, we just kind of took a couple days off.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's good. Snowball fights all around then.
I did see a couple snowball fights.
Really?
On it. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Did anyone build a snowman or a snow jet or
a snow jet
or a snow osprey?
Snow jet.
Yeah. No, but we'll see. We'll see on Monday when we get back to work.
Yeah. actually, Eoin showed me a picture of a snowman that had been built
Oh,
at home,
yeah.
It was just absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I had the picture taken from my family out in Galway in Ireland, and they had built a snowman that was probably about twice the size of most of my family.
Absolutely.
Now, to be fair, that's not hard. My family are quite short.
Yeah, well, okay.
but you know, still.
Actually, one of the funniest things I think I saw on Facebook this week was it was the headline that said, "Do you want to build a snowman?" And then it said underneath, "No, I want to go and lie on a beach, build sandcastles, and enjoy the sunshine."
So I saw that as well.
Welcome to March, everyone.
Yes,
Welcome to
indeed.
March.
So it is the 2nd of March, my word. We're in March already, guys and girls.
There's so many cameras and images I can't
And
find
it's just coming out, or just gone past 7:30 in the evening here in the UK. We're going to say a big welcome to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room tonight. Loads of people in there joining us this evening. We've got starting off, we've got Barbara Parish is in the chat room. We've got Jonathan Warner, Shorty Crosgrove, Liz Piper.
Have you told Jonathan there's no military yet?
We've got Jeff Braithwaite as well joining us. We actually had
the emails.
We had First Officer Mike joining us earlier from rather high aloft.
Yes.
Ben Marling. Hello, Ben Marling. We've got, I'm just scrolling over. Neil Landwarn. Hello, Neil. How are you? Myla, the lovely Myla's in the chat room as well. Tony S. Richard King. He's been entertaining the chat room with some rather funny little sentences, I think, there in the chat room. David Corson as well. He's in the chat room, but he's going to the pub. He might be going to the pub at some point this evening.
Yeah, I don't know. The way this is going, probably not. But anyway.
And if I've missed anyone, I'm very sorry. But thank you for joining us all in the live chat room tonight. Matt, what are you putting on there, Matt?
This is actually somebody who I work with, Anna, and this was the road this morning from Ilkeshaw St Lawrence to Bungay. And it was just like, I've never seen anything like it.
That is a lot of polystyrene.
That is a lot of white polystyrene all over.
Took a lot to put that scene together there, Matt.
Absolutely. I know.
The CGI is
award-winning.
For that, I have to say.
Anyway. Yeah, so it's fair to say that, as I say, we're normally the first to say that here in the UK we don't get snow, we get snow.
Yeah.
But actually...
we've had snow.
We have actually had snow. Yeah.
So we are going to kick off then and start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
Yes.
And if you're ready, Owen.
I certainly am.
Armando.
You're ready to go.
Let's go.
Nev,
are you ready? Sorry.
Oh, Nev!
Do we want to do that one again?
No. It's fine.
Sorry. My bad.
Yes.
Do you want to come down to the restaurant for a meal?
Don't worry.
It's no good. Nev. We're gonna have to get Nev a room here, aren't we?
We are absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll kick him under the table for you, Nev. How does that sound?
That's all right.
I'll send a limousine round next week, Nev.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Or Gemma will pick you up, one of the two.
Right.
Anyway, kicking off this week's first news story then. This one is on the independent.co.uk website. And, it's a headline that we're all used to here over the last few days here in the UK. And it's UK weather. Hundreds more flights cancelled across Britain as turmoil continues. So for most of you who in the UK or abroad or anywhere really, you'll know that we've been experiencing some rather interesting weather here in the UK. It's safe to say, Matt, I think this is probably the worst snow we've had in a good amount of years.
Probably 10 years,
yeah,
I would say,
at least.
Actually.
Nev, can you remember the last time we had anything this sort of bad? No?
It was a few years ago. I think this is the first time we've had those really low temperatures, though, for an extended period of time, and that's what's made the snow settle and stay around for a while.
So 60 EasyJet flights to and from Bristol Airport were cancelled as severe weather moved southwest, grounding around 10,000 passengers, many of them at overseas airports. While some early flights from Bristol took off this week, normally the prospect of severe weather has led to the grounding of the rest of this week's programme. The destinations include Tenerife, Gibraltar, Stockholm, all locations from which alternative travel is difficult to arrange. Passengers whose flights are cancelled or heavily delayed by bad weather are not entitled to cash compensation, but the airline must provide meals and, if necessary, overnight accommodation to stranded travellers. Many EasyJet flights from Gatwick, its biggest base and its headquarters airport of Luton, also were grounded as well. The airline said that as a result of the adverse weather conditions, which are still affecting the UK, and they still are now, and Europe, we are expecting disruption to many flights. We strongly advise all passengers due to travel today and probably tomorrow as well, I'm thinking, looking at the weather, to continue to check with the airlines before they travel to the airports. And, well, it's safe to say that's probably the best idea, really. For passengers abroad, EasyJet has a policy of booking passengers on rival airlines if it can't rebook within 48 hours of the original trip. Ryanair has cancelled all of its flights to and from the East Midlands, Leeds, Bradford, Edinburgh and Glasgow airports for the rest of yesterday. And today I think they've cancelled quite a few flights a day as well.
Edinburgh is closed today,
a lot of the cancellations are what I call UK based though, aren't they? Because I know, as I say, although there was a brief delay with Charlotte and Sarah taking off today, but their flight was 4:05, and the only reason it was delayed until 4:30 is because Heathrow, one of the runways was closed while they de-iced it and got it back up and running again. But so it was only a sort of 25-minute delay really. But because of course when they get the other end, it's absolutely fine, isn't it?
I think it's safe to say that it's come hard. I think we were not greatly prepared for what has hit the UK. I think a lot of the services...
again seems a bit strange because you think we knew it was coming, and the beast from the east that they keep referring to is just making me laugh.
I think it's Storm Emma they called it.
It started as the beast from the east, and then the winds and everything at Storm Emma. So it's
Nev, how do you feel we cope here in the UK with the airports here with adverse weather?
As the oldest member of the team, I'm obviously old enough to remember when it was really snowy in the 70s and early 80s. And the reason we've got all these flight delays is not really because of the snow. It's because of the very tight schedules that the airlines operate to, particularly the low-cost ones, where they've got no wriggle room at all. So they obviously have 25, 30-minute turnaround sometimes, and those kind of figures just aren't sustainable when the weather's like this. And I remember going on BA flights years ago when they had, probably an hour and a half between flights. Well, that no longer happens anymore. So the problem is that the schedules just are so tight. The slightest disruption in the weather. I remember Adam saying to us about the operations at Heathrow as well. When the weather's calm and everything's great, it's not a problem at all. But the moment there's a bit of a hiccup, whether it's fog or snow, whatever it is, then it does fall apart fairly quickly. And they need to make sort of tactical cancellations. So, especially the short haul sectors.
Yeah, tactical cancellations and tactical decisions regarding crew, regarding manpower on the ground, and that sort of thing. And I suppose we'll talk about it later with with one of the stories coming up.
For you, Armando, obviously you're in a completely different kind of industry as such to commercial aviation. Does it affect you guys the same?
Yeah, I think so. We've got a limited amount of snow removal equipment and ground personnel. It's absolutely the same. The thing, I think we just have a little bit more, wiggle room. We can
flexibility.
We can cancel flights and we just reschedule them for the weekends or something. Our flight schedules are nowhere near a commercial, operation. So.
Yeah. So moving on to the next story then, Matt. And as always, this one is specially chosen for you because it's involving a certain low-cost carrier here in the UK.
Indeed, yes. Sorry about that. I blew into my microphone. Sorry, everyone. Everyone's got a headache. It's on the BBC News website, and sad news, really. I think personally, Ryanair to axe Glasgow Airport base. Ryanair is to close its base at Glasgow Airport, warning that 300 jobs could go as a result. The airline, which also operates out of Prestwick, Edinburgh, and Aberdeen, will cut the number of routes out of Glasgow from 23 to just 3. Gosh, that's a really serious cut, isn't it? Chief Commercial Officer David O'Brien said that he blamed the change in the cost of air passenger duty and said Glasgow simply could not bear the burden. Glasgow Airport said it was bitterly disappointed by Ryanair's decision. A spokesman for the airport said that there was no doubt that the failure to replace air passenger duty APD with a cheaper air departure tax in Scotland was behind the move. The Scottish Government said it remained committed to reducing APD by 50%, but that there were still issues to be resolved before it could be introduced. Ryanair made the announcement as it unveiled its new schedule for winter 2018, confirming that only services to Dublin, Wroclaw, is that? Wroclaw and Krakow would continue from Glasgow. The company said 11 new routes would be added to its Edinburgh schedule. Ryanair has had to be nicer about its passengers of late, addressing them as suckers for low fares when only could only get the airline so far, but remains ruthless in its treatment of airports. For many, Prestwick included, it's the only passenger airline and is not afraid to use that leverage. So why abandon Glasgow as a base? Chief Commercial Officer David O'Brien talked about lots of air departure tax, the Holyrood-controlled rebrand of air passenger duty. He also said that it was down, to Brexit.
That word already?
Good.
Oh, did I say that out loud? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's not immensely obvious why either should be the reason when Edinburgh and Glasgow are equally affected. Maybe it's got more passengers going through it. I think that's probably the long and the short of it, isn't it? So, so it's a sad story in the fact that they're axing flights, basically closing the base at Glasgow. But
Eoin, you work for a large airline here in the UK. I mean, when things like this happen, can't they relocate staff to other bases?
So things happen and you get a huge amount of people needing to be relocated, and generally what happens is they get a list of bases where they can potentially choose from, and the company does their best to try and accommodate everyone with their first choice. Tends to be more permanent bases. I know Glasgow, it had 2 aircraft in the summer, 1 aircraft in the winter, so it was kind of a seasonal, kind of a semi-seasonal base anyway. The staff are all going to get relocated and brought out to other airports, possibly to Prestwick, which will grow, and Edinburgh will grow and gain quite a lot of the flights that Glasgow had. I believe most of the routes will still operate that did operate to Glasgow and from Glasgow will operate to and from Edinburgh and Prestwick. So there still is good.
Actually, they've got quite a decent operation out of Prestwick as well, haven't they? In fact, if it wasn't for Ryanair, I think the airport would not be doing as well there. So I think that's
Prestwick is I think has 16 routes out of it, if my memory serves, and most of those, I would imagine, will be Ryanair, and they do quite a few long range flights out to the Canaries and stuff out of Prestwick as well. So there is quite a big operation there. I know Ryanair also has a maintenance base in Prestwick, so I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon.
Have you ever had the chance to fly Ryanair, Armando?
Quite a bit.
Okay, less about that. Right. Okay.
And he loved every moment of it.
I'm sure he did.
So moving on to the next story then, and as always, we're moving over to Sir Nev.
Oh yes, it's a British Airways story, and this is on the businesstraveller.com. And British Airways has announced plans for a new transatlantic basic fare, which will launch this spring on selected routes. Exact routes and pricing are not yet available, but the carrier has confirmed that the fare will offer passengers hand baggage only and will not include seat selection. The new fare will launch in April on selected transatlantic routes with our joint business partners American, Iberia and Finnair. It will be referred to as basic on AA, BA and Iberia, and light on Finnair services. The unbundled fare will be offered on selected routes between Europe and North America and will continue to include in-flight meals, in-flight entertainment, headphones and blankets. In a release, BA said that the new fare would allow customers the choice to personalise their journey and only pay for the elements they require, with passengers able to add options individually. More information on routes and pricing will be made available when the fares go live. The carriers are the latest to introduce HBO transatlantic fare options, and Virgin Atlantic will surely now follow suit. Its partner Delta has already announced HBO fares on selected routes linking Europe and the US. Other airlines who have adopted HBO fares on transatlantic routes include Air France, KLM, Alitalia and Aer Lingus. That's quite an interesting development, isn't it? Because I think that not everybody wants everything, and I think if they're just trying to get from A to B and they're taking hand baggage only, some basic options would be quite good. So it'll be interesting to see what those fares are like.
Do you reckon this is going to be snapped up by business travellers, Nev? This particular fare, no?
Almost certainly not. I would say this is for people that fairly regularly go backwards and forwards across the North Atlantic and don't want to pay for baggage, and actually they want a sort of slightly no-frills experience. But it remains to be seen. And if the fares are competitive, then, as they said, other airlines will follow suit, I think.
Oh, we'll have to see what the prices are when they come out in April.
Well, they're going to be competing against the likes of, I think, Primera Air is starting up in Stansted, and they're going to be doing transatlantic. There's a few
Norwegian as well, I guess.
Norwegian, so they do have a lot of competition, I suppose, pressing in from the lower fares airlines. So it makes sense, and hopefully it'll get more people.
I don't know. I feel not that anybody cares about my opinion particularly, but it's just that I do wonder. Don't people fly British Airways because they expect a specific standard, though? You know, it's like you fly Ryanair because you know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I think that's the trouble, because I mean, don't forget British Airways and the what we'll call the premium carriers, if you like. They only really make money on on those business class and first class seats. All the economy and all the stuff down the back, they don't really make much money on especially on the longer haul sectors. So it'll be interesting to see how they can really make money with this model. But if there are fewer bags going on, maybe there's a possibility of some alteration there. But I think we'll just see what the fares come out at, and then you can probably make a better judgment after that. I imagine.
I wonder, is it just to get bums on seats, just to fill that a few more more seats?
I know. So Carlos and I were just talking about this. Once Norwegian came on the scene, I've almost exclusively flown Norwegian back to the States, and I go back maybe 3 to 4 times a year, and it's just like you guys are saying. Like, I know what I'm getting, but I like it. And I'm willing to pay that, and it's just. It's my price point.
Are they good?
They are really good. Actually, it's funny. The last episode we were talking about it, and I've flown Norwegian quite a bit, and I absolutely love them. Yeah, it's great airplanes, fun cruise, on-time service, and just gets me back to the U.S.
I mean, I suppose if you just want, especially like in your case, I mean, you're wanting to just go home, aren't you? You want to spend time with family, and if you can do that at a sensible price, then it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
It just makes the world so much smaller.
Well, yeah,
exactly.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
So, moving on to the next story then, and Armando, this one is, especially for you, this is a bit of an interesting story this week.
Awesome. Yeah, so from FoxNews.com, Jetstar flight forced to turn around after airline crew forgets clipboard in plane engine.
As you do.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. So a flight traveling from Auckland, New Zealand to Sydney was forced to turn around because a crew member forgot to remove his clipboard from the plane's right engine. A ground worker was conducting a pre-flight check on the Jetstar Airbus A320 when he placed his clipboard on the plane's engine cowling covering to protect his papers from the rain and the wind. And then he forgot to retrieve them.
Oh, dear.
A new report from the Australian Transport Safety Bureau that investigated the October incident explains the worker was preparing the aircraft for service and loading containers when he placed his clipboard in the engine. A dispatcher conducting a walkthrough of the aircraft before takeoff saw the clipboard, but assumed the worker would come back for it. So she did not retrieve it.
Oh, dear.
According to the report, the worker responsible for the clipboard assumed the dispatcher would have grabbed it. Neither, however, removed the item from the engine before the plane took off. So as you can imagine, it didn't turn out so well. The airline said or the officials said the presence of foreign object debris poses a significant threat to aircraft safety.
Right.
I mean, motor stuff. I mean, I've got a clipboard at work. It's made out of wood, albeit thin wood, but it's made out of a fairly sturdy piece of wood with a metal clip.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly confident that would do.
Yeah, I don't think. The metal clip would have been very good for the engine. Let's be honest. I think. I hope somebody sort of checked it to make sure that the engine was okay. Mind you, I don't know.
Well, they actually go on to say that the clipboard left minor damage in the engine's fan blade and attrition liner, used to soften noise after it was ingested by the aircraft engine. This is kind of interesting because I used to work as a ramp rat for United Airlines back in Dulles Airport.
What's a ramp rat? I like
a ramp rat. Like a ramp rat. Yeah, that's what we call them, right?
I think that's more of an American term, to be honest. But
yeah, ramp rats.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, don't start using it now. So it's probably offend somebody over here. But this would have been unheard of. I mean, that's an immediate. You get terminated, and that's it's just not good for anybody.
No. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next story now, and I presume this is for you, Eoin. I always get very nervous whenever I open a story, and the first thing that the little tabs where they put all the stuff at the top there. I always get very nervous when it says the word Donald Trump. I just think, here we go.
So this is from livemint.com, and it says Donald Trump reaches a deal with Boeing on
Did you just say dumb Trump?
I don't think I was.
Oh well, sorry. Just
maybe.
Sorry. Anyway, carry on.
So, the Donald.
I'm just trying to get you into trouble. That's all I'm trying to do.
Reaches a new deal with Boeing on the new presidential planes. Boeing says it's proud to build the next generation of Airforce One, providing American presidents with a flying White House at an outstanding value to taxpayers. President Donald Trump has reached an informal deal with Boeing to provide the next generation of presidential aircraft, the White House says. Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley on Tuesday said that the president negotiated a $3.9 billion fixed-price contract for the new planes known as Airforce One when the president is on board. It follows years of negotiation between Boeing and the U.S. Air Force and Trump's personal intervention since his election. In December 2016, Trump tweeted that costs for the program were out of control, more than $4 billion. He added cancel order. Boeing chief executive Dennis Muhlenberg met multiple times with Trump to discuss Air Force One's contract, most recently last week. Boeing in a statement said it's proud to build the next generation of Air Force One, providing American presidents with a flying White House at an outstanding value to taxpayers. President Trump negotiated a good deal on behalf of the American people, it said. Gidley said the agreement would save taxpayers more than $1.4 billion, but it remains unclear exactly how that number was calculated. The White House said the cost estimate had risen to over $5 billion for the two airplanes, but it did not provide any documentation to illustrate that claim. The agreement includes the two 747-800 aircraft and the cost of modifying the commercial planes with the equipment needed to support the president, including external stairs, large galleys, and a secure communications suite. Other modifications include electrical power upgrades and adding a medical facility, an executive space, and a self-defense system. As an example of the unusually high costs associated with Air Force One, the Pentagon announced in December that Boeing was given a $23.7 million contract to design, make and install, wait for it, the refrigerators on the president's plane.
Well, one must always have cold beer.
Well, there's that. I think so too. But yeah, $3.9 billion for two aircraft. That seems a bit large.
I'm just a bit surprised. I don't know. I'm gonna throw this one at Ned, but I'm kind of like surprised really that Boeing don't give it to them, because surely it's the most amazing like advertising you could ever possibly imagine. That the president flies a Boeing
I think
Well, I think in this instance, and with every Air Force One that's ever been built, I'm sure it's a commercial operation for Boeing, and obviously it's probably one of the most expensive 747s they ever make in terms of all the stuff they've got on board there. So they've got to sell it as a real aircraft, and obviously there's so many security things on the aircraft compared to a regular passenger version. It's amazing, isn't it?
Haven't you got your own version, Nev? You had one built for you, Nev Force One?
No, I should do, really, shouldn't I? I'd quite like a little, perhaps an Airbus A318 would be quite nice, so I can get in and out of City Airport, something like that. If I paint it yellow, that would be even better.
Well, it's got to match the colour of the banana, hasn't it? You realise
I was thinking,
all cars that you ever own after the banana now have to be yellow, don't you? You realise
now that I've reached, that's the colour spectrum I'm on.
Absolutely.
Certainly.
Or more realistically, we can just paint his face on the back of a PA-28 or something like that.
Well, there is that, absolutely. Some comments in the chat room, actually. They're saying, like, our main man, like, the legend that is Micah, is actually saying that he thinks it's a bit of a stupid choice for the aircraft, really. But
Well, I don't know, but I assume what this contract entails is also some of the upkeep of the aircraft and providing parts of the specialist security systems, possibly that will need to inevitably be replaced throughout the years.
Yeah, I think it's actually just a big conglomerate of companies that come together to build something like this. Boeing is the main company, but really there's a bunch of companies.
But let's be honest. I'm going to mention the word politics. I'm sorry. Brace yourselves, everyone, because he's never ever going to commission an airplane that isn't solely built in the US, or at least have very strong. He's never going to choose an Airbus, for example, because they're made predominantly in Europe and in France.
Yeah, it's an image.
However, isn't it interesting, when he had, I don't know if he's still got his 757 with Trump down the side of it, he absolutely insisted on that documentary, if you ever watched it, that they had to be Rolls-Royce engines.
Really?
And he wouldn't have it any other way. So perhaps that's his little tip of a wink to the UK from there, but yes, it was quite an interesting documentary he was involved with.
Perhaps he will insist something similar with Air Force One.
Can't see it somehow. It's got to be US built engines. I'm absolutely sure about that.
Oh dear. Well, you can dream, can't you?
You can dream.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So next story.
Yeah, that would be
and this one's on Express. Very posh paper here in the UK.
Right, okay. I always get very nervous whenever stories involve the Daily
Express. The Express.co.uk, this one.
Right. Brace yourself, everyone.
It's one of those things...
It's where we all go for our aviation news.
It's one of those things I think everyone would love to see at one point in their lifetime. And this is the moment that a British Airways flight catches the Northern Lights at 30,000 feet. So passengers on board a BA Special Aerobility Aurora flight last Saturday were treated to an extraordinary front row view of the Northern Lights at 30,000 feet. The evening was hosted by British astronaut and national treasure Tim Peake, who was joined by 142 stargazers travelling in hope of catching this dreamlike phenomenon. Whilst it's best seen in the Arctic Circle, the flight took off from Gatwick Airport and headed north to catch the rare glimpse of this spectacular display. So the Northern Lights, or the Aurora Borealis, is an ethereal natural light display, boasting flashes of green and blue and red in the night sky. The beautiful aurora occurs due to the particles from the sun striking atoms in the Earth's atmosphere, causing them to release light. According to Aurora Watch UK, the best display comes when the aurora moves directly overhead, when you can see the corona effect, where bands of light diverge from the sky directly above you, filling the whole sky. The day started at Gatwick Airport, where star watchers headed from Aurora expert and BBC The Sky at Night presenter Pete Lawrence. It was then followed by a special guest lecture from Tim Peake, the first British astronaut to visit the European Space Agency. So the sunset, passengers boarded the Airbus A320 aircraft and headed 61 degrees north to the coast of the Shetland Isles in hope of witnessing a celestial sight. Passengers were lucky catching green hues of the aurora from a passenger window. Captain Ian Mills, who operated the flight, said that British Airways is incredibly proud to be able to support this special charter flight, and we're delighted that we played a part in helping raise money for a fantastic cause. The flight was put on in order to raise money for Airability, a charity that gives people with a disability a chance to fly. And all proceeds from the evening were used to support the aviation-based opportunities for disabled young people, disabled adults and wounded soldiers. In attendance was Mike Miller-Smith, MBE, CEO of the charity, British Airways Senior First Officer and Airability Chairman Shona Bowman, and First Officer Airability Trustee Andy Robbins. Mike Miller-Smith, MBE, said the Airability Aurora flight required a huge amount of hard work and planning, and with the help of British Airways, tonight has been a great success. Airability supporters and the British Airways crews have been fantastic, and this is not the first time the Northern Lights have been seen from the UK this month. Throughout February, clear skies have meant the Aurora Borealis could have been spotted. And this is great, obviously charity work, obviously really good for charity, but also as well it must be amazing to see that from the sky for sure.
Have you ever seen the Northern Lights, Nev?
Not quite. No, I have been quite north in Sweden a couple of times, but sadly I've not seen them close up. But certainly at a distance, I was able to see them. And I mean, if you're above them or you actually go up to the north part of Norway, it must be an absolutely beautiful sight, I would imagine.
Have you seen these before, Armando?
Yeah, actually I have. It was the coolest thing. First of all, I'm from Puerto Rico, and we were doing some work up in northern Norway in Evanes with the Norwegians up there, and that is a long way to go for a Puerto Rican.
Nosebleed territory, yes.
But yeah, absolutely. It was just like you see on the TV documentaries, everything. Yeah. It was just awesome. So cool to see just lights dancing in the sky like that. Yeah, exactly what you would think it would be.
Yeah, I think it's everyone's bucket list item.
Definitely.
The trouble is, I mean, I know people who've gone to go and see the Northern Lights, and it just hasn't happened for them. Hasn't happened when they've gone, so they've gone all that way.
That's the thing with natural phenomena.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next story then for you, Matt, this one is especially for anyone who's wishing to move into a kind of engineering aviation experience.
Okay, so this is on the dside.com website, and the headline is "Deadline to apply for a craft apprenticeship at Airbus Broughton fast approaching." So applications close on Friday the 2nd of March, so you've got to do it now, basically, if you're going to do it.
You've got the next 4 hours.
And if you're listening to this, which the version that's released on Sunday, the audio-only version, I'm afraid you've missed the deadline. But anyway, the highly technical nature of the aerospace industry has created a huge demand for skilled and qualified specialists in the UK. Recruiting the best skilled and semi-skilled people is at the heart of the Airbus strategy to develop the world's leading aircraft family. By joining the Aircraft Apprenticeships programme, you receive second-to-none training while gaining the necessary skills, knowledge and experience to enable you to take an immediate contribution when you enter the workforce. Over 100 apprentices were taken on in 2017 at Broughton, and in the last 5 years, Airbus and Airbus Defence and Space have trained 500 external apprentices and a further 300 internal apprenticeships. An Airbus aircraft apprenticeship offers an opportunity to gain qualifications with no fees whilst acquiring new skills through vocational training, hands-on work experience and regular salaries. So for more information, basically if you take yourself to dside.com and look for apply for craft apprenticeship, then all the links are there if you want to have a look. I don't know if one story I was reading when we were looking at this on the way back suggested that the deadline might possibly be extended.
But, there's other ones based in Broughton as well, but more sort of business style and engineering degree style apprenticeships, and they're closing on the 9th of March. So if you are listening to us not live,
yes, indeed,
you've got till the 9th of March for those ones.
Either way, you still need to get on with it.
Pretty much. But it's great.
It would be nice to hear if any of the listeners at all know anyone or have anyone who's possibly applied for or going through a apprenticeship scheme like this. It'd be great to hear from them. See what it's all about. Be really good.
This is the thing, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
no, it's a great boost for all the negative things we say about the scare bus.
The scare bus. Thank you. Yes.
Oh. I don't say anything negative about the Airbus at all.
No, okay. And on that bombshell, Nev, I think the next story is with you.
This is on the telegraph.co.uk, and again, it's about the airport delays. But they're asking, why are UK airports so poor at dealing with snow? Stockholm Arlanda, Sweden's largest airport, has never once shut because of snow. Serving one of the coldest capitals in Europe, the airport prides itself on how it combats adverse weather, employing one of the most efficient winter operations in the business. It might suffer occasional delays, close one of its 3 runways, or restrict flights to only arrivals, but it has never shut its doors altogether. British airports, on the other hand, tend to grind to a complete halt in the face of much tamer conditions. Closures aside, even the lightest flurries of snow seem to cause cancellations and delays at the UK's largest hubs. On Monday, BA cancelled 36 flights from Heathrow first thing, whilst in December, flights were grounded on 2 separate occasions when snow arrived across the country. There are concerns more snow this week will cause further disruption, which it did. If aircraft, runways, taxiways and aprons are contaminated with snow and ice, then they need to be cleared, which takes time and in turn reduces airfield capacity, explains Paul Beecham from NATS, the UK's air traffic control provider. Add to that the potential for low visibility, and the whole operation has to slow down to keep the airport safe. Depending on the severity of the weather, it might also be necessary for us to work with the airlines and airports to agree what are called flow regulations to reduce the number of flights arriving into the airspace, again in order to maintain safe and manageable traffic levels and not to exceed what the airport has capacity for on the ground. Such a flow regulation was imposed on Heathrow in December when the capital saw snow, leading to delays and cancellations. When an airport is running at high capacity, as Heathrow does, with a packed schedule of flights, even the smallest disruption can have vast knock-on effects. In anticipation, some airlines will cancel flights in advance to provide some slack in their operations. And a British Airways statement, for example, said that this week's disruption said that it has proactively cancelled some services, as we were saying earlier on. Author and pilot Patrick Smith says that delays caused by snow are no different to the way poor weather might affect a normal commute. Bad weather causes delays in 2 ways, he says. The first is materially, the physical slowdown that inevitably results when human beings are forced to perform their duties in harsher than normal conditions. If it's raining or snowing, planes tend to be late taking off for the same reason. People tend to be late getting to work or school. We and our vehicles move more slowly. Simple tasks take longer. The second way, which has greater repercussions and is harder to predict, is by blocking up the air traffic control system. Weather delays is frequently a misnomer. More correctly, it's a traffic delay, the product of aircraft saturation at departure point, destination, or somewhere in between. Even in ideal weather conditions, the skies are crowded and delays common. Throw in ice, snow, low runway visibility, strong crosswinds, slick surfaces, and so on, and you've substantially reduced the number of allowable arrivals and departures per hour. But of course, this going back to the Stockholm Arlanda, which I've visited many times, it's a very good operation. There's 3 runways there, but also, of course, it doesn't have the same levels of traffic that Heathrow has either. So that's another reason why they can probably have better operations.
I mean, actually,
there,
when you think, how the airports and stuff work. I mean, actually, you think it's really quite astounding the throughput that you get at Heathrow with only 2 runways. I mean, it's an incredible operation, and that really, I doff my cap to the legends that are in that tower, because it is just, I can't even begin to imagine how it works. As you say, and like Nev's saying in this story, it's like Stockholm is, it's got 3 runways, and yet it has less departures and arrivals than the 2 runway Heathrow. I mean, it's amazing.
I think too another reason why UK airports are really just not great at dealing with snows, because they don't have the investment put into the snow plows to preventive measures, simply because we don't get enough of it. I mean, if you're based in Arlanda, well then you're going to be in snow for how much of the year. Yeah. So there's
certainly when I lived in Sweden, it could start in October quite easily and goes way through to March. So for 5 months of the year there could well be bad weather. Yeah. So obviously they're used to dealing with it all the time. There's plenty of it, whereas we get it here quite infrequently. I mean, obviously more so in Scotland, but certainly in the south and east of England, not as much.
I mean, actually, Armando, when we chatted during the week, he sent me a picture of when the snow was a bit light and embarrassing, and it's like, and it was he was sort of like, it's not snow, I come from New York, this is not snow. There's an amazing picture of your Land Rover like stuck in snow, like with a 6 foot drift on top of it.
Yeah, that's quite good. I mean, it not only affects, it's not only because of the weather or the operations and the investment, but it also has, as it says in the article, it has a lot to do with the people that are there. Yeah. Everyone is just moving a lot. Moving a lot more slowly.
But then you see, I would maybe sort of flip that slightly, and I'm sort of very surprised that Dublin Airport has been struggling so badly, because you do get quite a lot of snow in Ireland.
No, we don't. We get slush. We get slush. No.
We get 15 seasons in one day.
Yeah, well. Have you seen the? See, I sent you on the link. Did you manage to?
Give me a minute. Yes.
So, there is a quite reasonable reason as to why Dublin Airport is shut, and I don't know if anyone has seen this video that we're just going to put up in a second.
When did you send it?
It's on your WhatsApp.
Is it? Oh.
Sorry.
No, there was a report on ITV earlier this week, and they were talking to some big wig in the kind of airport kind of side of things, and they were saying that they're not willing to invest millions of pounds in equipment that's going to stand still pretty much all
most of
the
year.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
That is the thing. Yeah. So this was Dublin Airport. When was this?
This was this morning, I believe.
Wow.
Okay.
So you can see why Dublin Airport is closed.
Yeah, that doesn't look. That doesn't.
All
look
the poor
friendly,
planes.
does it? Yes, all those poor aeroplanes, not tucked up in bed, all nice and warm.
Where's the ground? All I can see is snow.
Which bit is the runway exactly?
Yeah.
What exactly occurs?
I believe this is taken in the kind of junction between Terminal 1 and Terminal 2.
Wow. Yeah, there's quite a lot of drifting going on.
You can't see either terminal, which is quite unusual for that part of the airport. So, that's probably why Dublin Airport is closed. But also the Irish government just put a red alert out, and everywhere is closed in Ireland. It's schools.
Yeah. Oh, good day, Evan Shue. Evan's joined us in the chat room. Hello, Evan.
Awfully early, isn't he? Or is it? I get very confused. I'm rubbish. I'm so rubbish at time zones.
Well, probably be early at this stage.
Glenn Tyler's just said that looks like Siberia.
It does look very like Siberia.
Yeah, and Liz has said that looks like Toronto.
Right. Well, fair point. Yeah, the homeland. Yes. Anyway, whose go is it
next? Story.
That would be Armando. I think. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. From theindependent.co.uk. Dubai Airport to close one runway for 45 days next year.
Wow.
Blimey.
That's a long time.
They say these upgrades are absolutely necessary to heighten safety, boost capacity, and pave the way for future growth, says Paul Griffiths, CEO of Dubai Airports. One of the two runways at the world's busiest airport for international passengers is to close for 45 days in April and May of next year. Nearly half of the normal flights could be grounded. The southern runway at Dubai International Airport, which last year handled over 88 million passengers, is nearing the end of its design life. The airport, whose code is DXB, or Delta X-Ray Bravo, will close the runway from 16 April to 30 May 2019 for resurfacing and replacement of ground lighting. The aim is to boost safety, service, and capacity levels. A spokesman for Dubai Airports told The Independent, in terms of flight movements, the reduction in capacity is estimated at this point to be approximately 43% during the 45-day period. It is too early to estimate the extent of the impact on passenger traffic, as this will depend on how airlines respond to the capacity reduction. Some may decide to fly with larger aircraft if possible. Some could see their load factor increase, both of which would influence passenger numbers. The airport's northern runway underwent a similar program in 2014, but the passenger numbers were then around 65 million. Today, the airport handles more than one-third as many people. Dubai is the hub for Emirates, which has an extensive operation from 6 UK airports: Gatwick, Heathrow, Birmingham, Manchester, Newcastle, and Glasgow. Emirates will launch flights from Stansted in summer 2018. I think it just kind of goes on and says they regret the inconvenience they cause to airline customers, passengers, and so on and so on.
But they'll get over it.
It continues on.
Actually, it's a good time to address Tony S.'s question in the chat room. It says, who decides what flights to cancel? Do ATC tell the airline they have to cancel a number of flights?
I'm going to be slightly controversial and suggest perhaps it's whichever airline has the biggest checkbook.
Or whoever's best friends with Adam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
although he doesn't have a lot of say, I don't think, in Dubai.
Not Dubai, no. But I can't believe that Dubai. I mean, I've been through there a number of times, and that is an incredibly busy airport. I think last year, I remember reading something online, they said they had like 7,500 flights per week, scheduled flights.
Yeah,
so I think that number's probably gone up quite a bit, I'd imagine.
It's a crazy number of flights.
Yeah.
But the answer to the question basically is that generally speaking, the airport authorities and the air traffic control will have an agreement saying when this condition happens, you'll need to have this percentage of flights going, and then it's up to the airline to pick and choose, and tends to be
basically it's like these many slots are available, and each airline you're only allowed so many, so you fill them with what routes you want, I suppose.
And generally it's what causes the least amount of disruption to the operation.
Yeah, rest assured, money's part of it too. I've been I was able to go into the American Airlines operating center in Dallas a couple times when my dad was working there, and it's amazing. It's just this huge operations center, and they have contingency plans for all these, and they know exactly what flights make money, what flights don't make money, and which ones are going to cancel.
Yeah,
indeed. Nev, have you been through Dubai at all? Sorry to disturb you there.
Yeah, I'm just doing Facebook. Sorry.
Sorry, he's busy taking selfies at the moment.
Yes, sorry. I have been through Dubai. In fact, I went there as a destination. I've never actually been through there to go somewhere else. But obviously, it's a very key hub to the Asia Pacific. It's sort of halfway between Europe, isn't it, and Asia Pac, and also a big stopover for the US carriers as well. So, but it's an impressive place, isn't it? It's absolutely enormous.
They don't do things by halves in Dubai, do they?
No.
They don't do small anything.
It says here that they actually have an average of 193,000 passengers go through the airport each day.
Oh yeah, I'd easily believe that. Yeah.
That's a frightening number, isn't it? That is a frightening number. Okay, so we're on to the last story then, and Owen, I think this is with you.
So the last story, we had one base close in the UK, but Wizz Air opens a first UK base, so good news again. We'll finish on a high. Wizz Air this week opens its latest base at London Luton. Its first.
No.
Was I a bit enthusiastic there?
Yeah, I think you were.
Yeah, Nev, he loves that.
Yeah, Nev's got his thumbs down and everything. It's not bad. Anyway, I'm thrilled for them all. Yes.
It's the first hub in the UK and Western Europe. To coincide with the stationing of one A320 at Luton, Wizz Air opened new routes to Pristina and Tel Aviv, while a route to Kutaisi.
I'm so glad you had
Kutaisi
was launched on the 18th of June. The carrier now serves 42 routes from the London airport this summer. Owen Jones. Oh no. Oh no. This Owen is not spelled correctly. CCO at Wizz Air said at the base opening, "We're proud to celebrate the opening of the first Wizz Air base in the UK at London Luton. Wizz Air's very first flight in 2004 was to Luton, and since then we've carried 30 million passengers on our low fares routes from the airport, stimulating local tourism and aviation industries, while also strengthening business partnerships between the UK and CEE. Along with the opening of the new base at Luton, Wizz Air has also expanded its network from Riga and Koshka in this week, with both bases welcoming two routes each. Of the routes launched by Wizz Air over the past 7 days, the average sector length is 2,191 kilometres. The link between Luton and Tel Aviv, which is the most heavily competed route launched by Wizz Air, will be flown by the ULCC, the ultra-low-cost carrier, 4 times weekly, while the remaining routes will see a twice-weekly rotation. So yeah, really good news for Wizz Air for Luton and for the UK.
I mean, it's nice to...
Brings a bit of colour to Luton Airport.
It does,
I will say.
I mean, part of me is, because I'm going to brace yourselves. Here comes the politics again. Because every time, like you mentioned the word Brexit, and it's the excuse for lots and lots of things. So, I mean, this is maybe an example. Perhaps one airline is less concerned about that than some others. I don't know. It's a difficult one, isn't it? That word Brexit.
Have they finished their things at Luton Airport, Matt? Have you been there since their regeneration of the terminal?
No, I sort of usually I'm more likely probably to sort of. I did say last time I went to Luton that the next time I went would be when hell had frozen over. So
maybe you today.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was actually going to happen this week. That's the trouble. Yeah. But there we are. Are you a fan of Luton by any chance, Nev? Have you actually been?
I have, yes. I've flown from there a few times, but every time I go there, it's they've changed the way that you get into the airport again in terms of the car park flow, or there's more roadworks, or there's more building. I don't think I've ever been there in the last 25 years without some sort of major construction work going on. And it's a very busy airport now. It's obviously a single runway operation, but there's a lot of traffic going through that. I can remember spotting there for aircraft many years ago. This is before the EasyJet operations, and it was Britannia and airlines like that flying, and it was the holiday airport. There was very few scheduled services from Luton. Now it's a big mix of both scheduled and regular commercial traffic, and a big private operation there as well. Lots of biz jets using Luton too, so it's a huge operation, certainly.
Yeah, I flew over it probably about 2 months ago at this stage, but yeah, it was definitely still in construction. You can see that much. That much is evident from the air.
Well, yes, that's the point. Yeah. You get a good view of all the cranes.
Of course, it is Pip's favourite airport in the world. Yeah,
is it?
I'm sure it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Very close to his home, no doubt. Yes.
So that is the last story. That's where we bring the commercial news segment to a
I'm going to get told off now because I haven't read the show notes, so I don't know what's coming next.
So up next then, we are going to hand things over to Sir Nev.
Oh, right.
Nev's got let's just say Nev's got an interesting passenger experience segment. So take it away, Nev.
Yes, you know how I like to interview my industry colleagues from time to time about their flying experiences and how they've got on. But a couple of weeks ago, I thought I would interview someone different about her flying experiences. And this week, we're talking to Gemma Stebbings. Hello and welcome to another Nev's Passenger Experience segment. Well, this week, and slightly awkwardly in some respects, I'm speaking with the long-suffering wife of Carlos, Gemma Stebbings. The poor girl that has to put up with Carlos's penchant for aviation decided that she needed some therapy, and so I thought we'd have a chat about the flying that she has done over the years. Gemma has done quite a number of trips to the Middle East, and I began by asking her about the last flight she took and where she travelled to.
The last flight was last November, which seems like a long time away now. We obviously, as I'm sure everyone's aware, Carl did go to the Dubai Air Show. I'm sure they've heard that. So, and I went with him, not to the air show, obviously. So we flew out from Heathrow to Dubai.
Nice. And what was that flight like? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, no, actually it was, I mean, obviously I've been to Dubai quite a few times. And then been through it quite a few times as well. So I know roughly it's about 7-8 hours. But actually, I think they were going to do it in about 7 1/4, I think they said. So any kind of short shortening to the anticipated arrival time was lovely, because I'd actually been at work since 5 o'clock in the morning that day, or got up at 5 o'clock, and then we were doing a night flight as well. So nothing wrong with the flight at all. It's just I don't sleep on them. So I was very tired when we got there.
Yes, I bet. And how long did you stay in Dubai for before you went on to Oman after that?
So I think it was just, I was there 2 nights. Carl went to the air show. So we had the Friday night together. No, it was 1 night. We had the Friday night together, and then I flew out to go and see a friend in Oman on the Saturday night.
Nice, excellent. Mm-hmm. Did you have to get a separate visa for that or anything, that separate journey?
Yeah, so when you go to Oman, you do require a visa for the duration of your stay. A tourist visa is what obviously we would get. And of the times we've been out there previously, when you get when you arrive at immigration, the queue is often enormous if you time it wrong. So you can actually pre-purchase them online, which we did for me for this time. It was about £40, I think. So, but obviously I wasn't staying very long, but obviously I think it's for up to 30 days actually. So it's just a set price. Yeah. So we'd already prepaid that. So I already had that. So I was able to just come off the flight, go straight through with my very limited Arabic.
Yes, I bet.
I can say thank you. To which the chap at immigration was not massively impressed. He said, "You should know more. You've been enough times." He said, he was looking at my passport, and he said, "Is all you can say is thank you?" He said, "You should know more." And I said, "Well, dear. I'm really sorry. I'm trying." He was very, very good-humoured, actually. Really nice. They're very nice Omani people. Very nice.
Yeah, they are. And now, so that was the last flight you took, but going way back to when you first flew, can you remember the first flight you ever took?
We never really went abroad as a family. We never went abroad as a family, actually. We used to holiday in the UK, which was still really, really lovely. So I first went abroad with not Carl, and I flew from Norwich to Cyprus, actually. Probably I was about 19, I would say. Yeah. Yes, that was my very first time flying. And I really remember thinking, I have no idea what to expect here. I mean, don't get me wrong, flying from your local airport was lovely. But yeah, the 4 hours felt like a day.
Yeah, I bet.
It's because you just don't know what to expect. But I've never been worried about flying at all. So it was it was nice. I can't remember who I flew with, airline wise, but I think we had a meal, and yes, that was my very first flight. Very first one.
And have you done much flying, generally speaking? Do you these days try and get away, once a year somewhere nice and warm?
Yeah, we do try. I think, certainly, I've done a lot of Europe, and in more recent years, I would say we've done a lot more long haul. My very first long haul flight was our honeymoon to the Maldives. So that was my very, very first one, and I do remember being in the travel agents when we were booking it and thinking, 17 hours, 17 hours. And I thought, how on earth am I going to do this for 17 hours when all I've done is, European flights, which were, 2 to 4. So yeah, that was quite extraordinary. That was lovely, actually. We were upgraded. We flew Emirates because I remember that one, and we were upgraded from Dubai to Mali in business class, which was lovely. And then we took a seaplane from Mali to our island, which it was incredible, really, really incredible.
It makes a huge difference, doesn't it? Just being upgraded just for one sector like that, it's a different experience entirely, isn't it?
It is, yeah, unreal, and almost to the point where I kind of thought, why is my life not like this? Why is this not my everyday life? But I'm not a pop star, so, one has to be satisfied with where they are. Yeah. So no, it was really lovely. And I guess because I've worked in retail for many years, I know how hard these guys, I can only anticipate how hard these guys work. Those long hours. the level of, care and attention, no matter how tired they are. At the end of the day, I could walk away from a shop, lock it up and go, but they can't get away.
I think the cabin crew especially do an incredible job, don't they? Especially on those long haul sectors, which, as you say, they've just done a 14, 15-hour flight, and they have a short time off, and they're back on the next rotation the following day. So it must be very, very hard work, mustn't it?
Incredible. And I think especially if they're dealing with something difficult or unusual. And there's nowhere you can go particularly, or anyone you can ring for immediate assistance. They've got to deal with it then and there. I think that's probably overlooked, actually, if I'm really honest, in terms of, a job. That takes a lot of skill, I think.
Now, I've just happened to know that Carl can be a bit of a nuisance on the plane. In other words, when you land and you want to get off, all he wants to do is go and talk to the flight crew. Have you experienced this before?
I've experienced it many times, Nev, and I'm actually really glad that he didn't take a flight to propose to me, because that would have been really embarrassing. But yes, there's been many a time and actually I think there was one time we were actually held up. I think they wanted to take off, actually, and Carl was up at the flight deck chatting away to the captain and the first officer, and it is. I find it a little bit embarrassing. I really do, because everyone's looking at me sat there, everyone's sat down, and then he gets up and goes, and they're all looking where he's gone, and they're looking at me as if to say, wow, what's going on? And I'm thinking, and I could just disappear into my seat, but I'm afraid I can't. So, he's done that many a time. And I've obviously been lucky enough to go and have a look around, one of the flight decks before it's taken off. I have no idea what any of the stuff does or anything like that. I'm, unfortunately, not very knowledgeable, and would just go, oh, your seats look quite comfy, saying something really not clever. So yes, he has done that many a time. It is quite embarrassing. He's not bothered, I am.
Yeah, I was going to say, he shows no mercy whatsoever.
He really isn't bothered one bit. And I think sometimes they may encourage him a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure they do. There's no question about that at all. And what about sort of future? Where would you like to go in the future? If you had to pick a long-haul destination, where would you like to fly to? Oh, gosh.
I mean... I've mastered, obviously, the Middle East. I'm quite good at 8 hours. I have got family in Australia. I'm not massively keen and thinking about doing the flight. Carl and I would like to go to Singapore. I think that's somewhere we would really like to go. I don't know lots, but obviously Singapore Airlines are up there with the competing with the luxury big hitters. So I think that'd be well worth seeing what they have to offer, because I am quite partial to an Emirates or a Virgin flight. I won't lie. I'm quite fond of those brands. But yeah, I would think just to push that a little bit further would be lovely. To see. It's just getting beyond the sleeping thing. Yeah,
it is difficult, and there's no question about it. But actually, Singapore, although it's 12, 13-hour flight, if you were going to go to Australia, spend 2 or 3 nights in Singapore and then going on to Oz is, that extra 7.5 hours is quite manageable, as long as you have a bit of a rest in between, I think. I
think so. I know Carl spoke about one airline, because doing direct flights to Oz, and I just said there's absolutely no way you'd get me on one of them. I couldn't do it unless I can have a live flatbed. Yeah, I mean they're going to be, Qantas are launching their London to Perth route directly in March, so that's going to be 17.5 hours non-stop, and that would be such a slog. I think I think more than 12 or 13 hours on a plane. That's it. Yeah, I think I'm probably with you, Nev, on that one. As I said, I don't notice this sort of 7 to 8, to Dubai. Although we did have an incident once when I think we were flying from Heathrow we were going to Oman, but we went via Dubai. And some sort of situation was, I think someone became ill as we were then about to take off, and we were literally grounded on the tarmac for 2.5 hours before we'd even taken off. And I think that was probably not the greatest. It's not the worst flight I'd ever had, but that's the second worst experience I'd had. It's nobody's fault, and people get very angry, but there's nothing anybody can do. They've checked all the security on. They're not going to pull everybody off unless they really, really have to. But
if someone's taken ill, then they're taken ill, aren't they?
Exactly. It's nothing anybody can do. It's just like, oh, we've now got all these hours to sit here when we've already sat here, but what can you do?
No, exactly. Well, as usual, Gemma, it's been great speaking to you, and thanks very much indeed for telling us all about your passenger experience.
You're welcome, Nev.
Find this and other great shows at the Aviation Media Network.
TheVoicesInYourHead.com.
The Plain Talking UK podcast is a voluntary project that aims to keep you informed with the latest aviation-related stories from newswires across the globe.
Producing our content does cost money though. If you enjoy our show, why not help us keep on the air by making a donation towards the server and website hosting fees through PayPal. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated.
Are you an Amazon user? If so, why not do your shopping through the link on our website? There's no cost to yourself, and Amazon pay us a small referral fee on qualifying purchases.
To find out more about the show and to meet the team, take yourself to our website www.plaintalkinguk.com,
or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/plaintalkinguk, on Twitter via @plaintalkinguk, or get in touch via email on podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. Thanks for listening.
Flybe 5823, Trent Dane for 23-hour Manchester, Wizz Air 6X, climb flight level 210, direct to Bretlands Park. United 123, maintain 280 knots. London 2TME, turn right onto Bravo, link 21, join Alpha, hold at Mora, Speedbird 472, LOC/DME, approach runway 27 left, follow the green stand 544.
That's enough air traffic control for today, Nat. Bedtime.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to fly a commercial passenger jet? Looked up at the sky and thought, I wish that was me? Well, now anyone has the chance to have a go at flying in a real aircraft simulator. NP Simulations and Flight Experience London, the only official Boeing licensed product of its kind in the UK, offer you the chance to fly anywhere in the world in their fixed-base Boeing 737-800 flight simulator. And that's not all. Ground School London offers many different courses for the up-and-coming pilot looking for a start in aviation. With prices starting at just £109, the sky's the limit. So for the ultimate flight simulator experience, or engaging preparatory courses, including those for schools and colleges, check out the websites at www.london.flightexperience.co.uk and www.groundsschoollondon.com, or call on 020 300 40 616. NP Simulations. Fly your dreams.
Well, it's safe to say, Nev, you had fun there.
I think we got away with it, didn't we? We locked you in another room so that you couldn't hear what was going on. Yeah. But it's interesting, isn't it, to listen to what she had to say about, flying with you more specifically. But clearly, you're not going to change anything about your behaviour whatsoever.
No, I can guarantee you that, and I shall be doing exactly the same thing later this year when we fly it to Malta again with Air Malta.
Nothing else,
no, but well done, Nev.
I rather enjoyed the sort of the hanging her head in shame every time you go up to the flight deck and just like
the flight she was talking about. I can remember that flight because that was an Air Malta flight actually going out of Gatwick. And I went on the flight deck before we took off, and we were just chatting away for so long that everyone was just waiting.
So you were the reason why the flight was nearly late, essentially.
I wonder, is there a delay code for passenger talking to the flight deck?
Aviation weirdo in the cockpit.
Absolutely.
But
there must be some code.
No, but honestly, in all seriousness though, that Nev, you'll know this as well. A lot of the nearly all the flight deck crew I've spoken to in all my years of flying have always said that one of the big parts of flying they miss is not having the ability to have passengers in the flight deck during a flight. To children, adults or whatever, they miss it.
Yeah,
they really,
I bet
really
they do.
miss
I
it.
bet they do. Actually, to be fair, yeah.
So coming up next, then we have got a very special little piece of audio which was sent to us this week by our lovely listener Jenny in Rome. So here it is.
Hello, Plain Talking UK, this is Jenny in Rome, and would you believe I'm sitting in my car. I've just parked in front of the Colosseum. I might even send you a photo. The snow's gone away, and so I'm able to get the car out of the garage for the first time in a few days. Anyway, you said you wanted some feedback, so just a few things. I very much enjoyed last week's episode when you were talking about the newly named Air Italy that's changed from Meridiana. I've flown on Meridiana, and they seem to be fine. They've had years and years of problems with industrial relations, so let's hope they've got that sorted out now and they'll be flying around all over the place. Michael O'Leary of Ryanair was in Italy this week, and he came to announce the new winter routes from the Italian hubs, and perhaps of interest to people in the UK. There are now going to be flights next winter from Manchester not only to Rome, but to Bologna and to Venice Treviso. Venice Treviso is a bit like London Southend in that it's a train ride away from Venice, but Treviso's not bad. I've spent a weekend there and it's very nice. And if you decide to go to Venice, I suggest that you get a hotel in Mestre, M-E-S-T-R-E, which is a very short bus ride from the Venice station. And the hotels are very much cheaper, and the restaurants and things. And then you just bus in and out for the day, which is very nice. So that's that news. Third piece of news is a colleague of mine, an American woman, who's always been terrified of flying, and it's always very difficult for her to go back and visit her family in New York because she just hates the travelling so much. Well, I talked her into booking onto Norwegian that have just started a direct route from Rome to New York at very competitive prices. So she booked herself into, I think, the more comfortable cabin. And she left the other day. And she's agreed when she comes back to be interviewed on her passenger experience. So I hope it all goes well, since it'll be my fault if it doesn't. Anyway, I'll be sending that in next week. Well, thanks to all of you for your wonderful show. Just gets better and better. Bye for now.
Thank you, Jenny in Rome, for that piece of audio feedback. Always lovely to hear from Jenny every time. We do enjoy hearing from someone who lives somewhere where it's probably slightly warmer than it is here in the UK right now.
So, although she's saying, it was a few days before she could go out because the car was snowed in,
yeah. But no, thanks very much for that, Jenny. And don't forget, for any of you guys listening, we love to hear audio feedback from you, so send it in to us at the show. So we have had another piece of very special video feedback sent in, haven't we, Nev?
Yes, we have. And are we talking about... I've lost my place in the thing. Yes.
Okay. I'm glad I'm not the only one that doesn't read them. Yeah.
Well, anyway. I did read it, but I read it.
Yes. Anyway, he's been rather aloof of late. I think it's safe to say he's been rather aloof of late. But it gives us great pleasure we have a little bit of an update, because the reason why he's been a bit aloof is because he's very, very busy. And as we all know, he's no longer on the Hawker. Is it the Hawker, the Hunter Hawker? Was that what he was on before? He's not on that. Have I done that right?
Yeah, he was on the Hawker.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. It's all right. Because I'm not very good at this.
Oh, on this one, he's on the Phenom.
No, I know. I'm saying, but obviously he's changing.
You are correct.
Yeah, right. He's changing aeroplanes.
Yeah.
Essentially, so that's why he's been very busy. Very busy. So he sent us a little bit of video feedback, telling us all about that.
Plane safety from the flight deck with pilot Pip.
Hi guys, it's Pip here with a little video segment for you. Now, those of you who have listened to my latest podcast, that's Plane Safety Podcast, episode 49, you would have heard Al and I discussing some of the things that I both dislike and do like on the new aircraft, the Phenom. And this is what we're looking at the moment. Here's the Phenom business end of things. Fairly fancy looking, I suppose. Just very briefly, these are the two primary flight displays over there. This is the central one. At the moment I've got this one here is the electrical schematic It's a fairly basic electrical system, to be honest. We've got the ground power plugged in at the moment, which is feeding our 28 volts to the various electrical bits and bobs. These are the engine driven generators, they're off at the moment. This is a general status page. Any open doors or anything like that would be shown there, but everything's buckled up and closed at the moment. Hydraulic pressure, none of that because the engines aren't running. Oxygen, this is the contents of the oxygen bottles. Accumulator, brake pressure, that's all fine, and a few other bits and bobs as well. And there's various things we can look at up here actually. Let me have a quick scroll through. On this side is the environmental control. Damn it, that happens all the time. I've got to select one screen or the other, and I keep doing the wrong one. So over here we can see that's the environmental system. Again, it's all turned off at the moment. What else we got? Fuel, not much happening. Icing system, it's all turned off. But anyway, what I wanted to show you was, if I put that back to where it was, put the map back there. You know, we can chop and change, we can kind of have anything we want on any screen. But what I wanted to briefly show you was one of the things that I do like, which is the Connext weather system. Let's put map on full display. Here we go. So here's our map, and we're in London City at the moment. We're flying across to Zagreb. There we go, about 800 miles to Zagreb. And so let's go into down here. This is the touch controller where I control everything from. So we've got weather radar there, we've got the Cirrus XM weather, which is the US version, and then we've got our Connext weather. So this is connected to an Iridium satellite, which is in turn connected to the Connext server. Connext is a service by Garmin, and this is all Garmin stuff up here. And so we can select what weather we want to have a look at. This Connext is a weather service, gives us live weather, sort of live anyway, and we can select exactly what we want to look at, and it pulls it down from the server. So we have various things we can select to have a look at. We can have radar data. Now I incorrectly said on the podcast that this was satellite weather data, and it's not. The information comes via a satellite, but actually the information originally comes from ground-based weather radars. And however this works, it takes all the information from all the available ground-based weather radars and makes a kind of sort of combined weather radar picture, which we can see on the screens. So that's that. This one, infrared satellite data, that is from a satellite. That's slightly less useful. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to use that. METARs, so that's actual weather reports, that's very useful. We can see lightning, so it detects any lightning strikes and puts a little display up on the map, and wherever there's a little lightning symbol, that means there's been a lightning strike to the ground within 2 kilometers of that symbol. So that was my phone going there. What else can we have a look at? Winds aloft, we'll have a look at that in a second. You can select various levels of wind. That's good useful information. SIGMET, significant weather reports, AirMets, pilot reports. Weirdly, what's absent here is TAFs, forecasts, airport forecasts. That's for some reason not here, but that's okay. And then you can also go in and define exactly where you want to look. So present position, we've got selected destination, flight plan, and for the next 500 miles I can go in and change that if I wish. Let's make it, oh, it's only giving me 500 miles at the moment, that's okay. And then any other waypoint I might wish to choose, so I can choose any airport in the world really to have a look at that. So that's what we've got there. So let's select winds aloft, let's select radar, and let's select METARs and go back up to the screen here. So this is the dedicated Connext screen, but I prefer to have it overlaid on the map. So if I go into map settings down here, go to sensor, and then I can choose, so that's the weather radar, I don't want that. So I've got the graphical METARs, I've got the Connext weather radar selected, and weather source is Connext. Now I could choose Cirrus for that if I wanted to, if we're in the States, but we're not, so I'll leave it on Connext. And then if we go up here, we can see here, this is the radar data that I was talking about. So we're at London City at the moment. There's a beautiful Falcon 7X over there. It was snowing a second ago, it's stopped now, but there is a lot of snow showers out there. So what we're looking at here, if I zoom in a little bit, this is weather collected from the ground weather stations, and all this blue stuff is snow. In fact, if we go back to the down here to the Connect thing, we can go in and I can tap on Legend, and there we go, it actually shows us what the colours are. So all this blue stuff is snow, and this is all rain, and this is mixed stuff. So if we go back to here, and oh, it's just a bit, there it is. We can see there's a lot of snow out there, especially in our departure route. This is our departure off runway 09 at City, heading out across Kent. And as we flew in, I can tell you this is all covered in snow down there. And what we can also do, if I get my little cursor here, look, this is just like an iPad touchpad. Here's my little cursor, you see. I can here, so if I go here to London City, oh man, my phone never stops going. And it pulls up the latest weather. So there we go, I can see that London City at 10:50 Zulu, that was about 20 minutes ago. The auto weather system was giving winds 070 at 10 knots, 10 k's visibility, rain, snow, broken at 2,100 feet, broken at 3,000, towering cumulus, temperatures currently 0, dew point -5, and the QNH is 1024. And you know, I can do this for any airport I wish. I could scroll around. What's this airport here? That's Southend. We can go across to LF80, I'm not sure where that is. If we scroll out a bit again, we've got all these little flags here, and the colour coding on the flags is quite interesting. And I can't remember exactly what it all means, but green is basically good weather, blue is slightly less good weather, there should be some red ones there as well, and some magenta ones giving various sort of instant depictions of what the weather's like. So that's a really, really good system. Oh, let me show you the winds aloft. That was a nice one as well. If I go back to down here, weather, connects, there's a lot of tapping is the only thing. Oh, should we have a look at the infrared, see what that looks like? Is that going to come up? Yeah, this is measuring temperature. It's meant to show you a sort of where the cloud tops are, but it always, whatever I select, it always just seems to come up with a big white blob. So I'm not entirely sure how to interpret that. So let's get rid of that. Let's have a look at winds aloft. Here we go. Winds aloft is on. So all these symbols here is showing the wind direction, and the strength. You see this one here is 30 knots. It's got 3 dashes. If it's got a big sort of triangular dash, that's 50 knots plus the smaller one. So there we go, that's 25 knots, that's 30 knots. I can't see anything bigger than that at the moment, but that's looking at level 390. So if I was, let's say I was going in this direction and I was thinking, God, this is a great big old headwind, I wonder what the winds are like further down. Let's just select something else, and hey presto, it brings up another level, and they're not all that different, to be honest, are they? So that's a rather nice feature as well. And that's sort of it, really. Got some other cool features. I'll tell you what, let's have a quick look at this one. This I quite like, and this is something that's about to be approved for official use, although we do use it unofficially. If I go down here, let's just go back one. Hit this button here, it says checklists. Oh, not CPLDC. If I go to checklist, then I get all the checklists up here on the screen. So this is all the normal checklists, but the ones I really like, or the ones I think are very useful, are the non-normals and the emergency checklists and the non-unknown status. So this is really good when we're in a high pressure situation and we're trying to work through some checklists. Here, let's have a look at for ditching, for instance. It puts the checklist right up here on the screen, so we can both see what the checklist says and how far through it we are, rather than one guy having a paper checklist on his knee and working through it, and the other guy, the pilot flying, is having difficulty kind of keeping up and staying in the loop, as it were. So we can go through these checklists. Whoops, how did I get there? Go back to ditching. And then we can go through, scroll through them one by one. We can even tick them off as they're done and they turn green. So I think that's a really, really good system. And we've got all the checklists here, and of course there are loads of them. The non-enunciated ones, We got smoke ones, we got all the various cautions which come up on the CAS. That's this thing down here, the crew alerting system. All the messages will show up there. Similarly over there. Ah, my phone again! Will you shut up? Alright, well that was a brief video tour, mostly of the Connect system. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you all again somewhere very soon. But for now, this is Pip signing off and wishing you all safe flying. Bye bye.
Oh, that was fun.
That was so cool.
Honestly,
that was so cool.
The quality of the video was absolutely awesome. Yes. Unfortunately, if you listen to the audio podcast, take yourselves over to YouTube and catch the video show, because that was really, really great. Did you enjoy that, Nev?
It was good, yes, but he should have used a polarizing lens on
dear.
his camera. Otherwise, you get a reflection.
You see,
just saying. I mean, we've got technical standards, you know.
Well, that is true.
There was a lot of talk in the chat room as well about a certain number.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. One of the suggestions was the hotel room of the head stewardess. Perhaps was one of the options offered. I'm sure that's not true.
No, but it is proof though that Pip is still living somewhere. Yes. And thanks for sending that in, Pip. That was really awesome.
Yeah.
Really,
more
really
of
awesome.
those, please. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That was really quite cool.
So, as you all know, we have got a very special guest in the Barn Studio with us tonight. And Armando, welcome again onto the show.
Yeah, just super happy to be here.
So, Armando, we're going to have a little...
He's only excited because we're going for a meal afterwards. That's
I know. That's coming up very soon.
Yeah,
but Armando, we're going to have a quick chat with you then about how did everything aviation start with you?
Oh, man. Well, I'm one of those people that came from an aviation family. My dad was an airline pilot for Puerto Rico International Airlines, so Prinair, which I think at one time was the biggest commuter airline in the world or in the Western Hemisphere or something like that. Flying de Havilland Herons, actually, of all things. Yeah, so every time I see one over here, I
get quite excited.
Yeah, and I'll send him a picture or something like that. But my brother is also an airline pilot. He flew for Acme for a while, and Acme Junior, then Acme, then went on to do some overseas stuff. So, yeah, so the three of us have been flying for ever since I was 3 or 4 years old. I have pictures of me a whole different era before cockpit doors. I used to fly literally on my dad's lap when there was passengers in the back, and we used to just go island hopping. Yeah.
Wow.
So I caught the bug pretty early on.
So moving on then to where you obviously got your PPL, you got your license and stuff. So where did that all start?
Well, actually, the Civil Air Patrol, right? So some of the other podcasts have talked about the Civil Air Patrol. It's basically the U.S. version of the UK Air Cadets. And there's actually international organizations that kind of are trying to get that youth involved in aviation. So I joined the Civil Air Patrol in the U.S. When I was 14 years old. And they have this incentive program. It's not even an incentive program. It's really just a syllabus for the kids where you get 5 powered flights and 5 glider flights, just free of cost, part of the program. And after that, it was I was 100% hooked. Both my dad and my brother were instructors, FAA CFIs. So I had sort of the best instructors, and went on to get my my PPL and multi-instrument and commercial. So yeah, it's just been an awesome ride. Most of my life has been heavily involved in general aviation. That's really what I like to do.
On the note of general aviation, then, you've obviously flown in the US. Mm-hmm. Have you had a chance to fly in the UK, general aviation?
I have, actually. Navigating the rules is interesting, especially because I'm flying on a FAA license over here. So just to get the rules and figure out what I can and can't do can be challenging sometimes. But there's some really smart examiners, both FAA and EASA and CAA, that have helped me figure out what I can and can't do. But yeah, I've been flying a Cessna 172, a PA-28 out of Bury St. Edmunds, and then also out of Connington. There's a N-registered twin, a Piper Apache, that I've been flying with a buddy. So yeah, it's completely different over here then.
So on that note, comparing flying in the US then with flying over here in the UK, what are the big differences?
Well, the cost. The whole thing, landing fees are non-existent for general aviation in the U.S. The idea that, so I have flown into Dallas Love Field, I've flown into Charlotte International in a two-seater, and they just absolutely don't care. They'll treat you right, so you don't want to be in the way, but they'll treat you just like a big airliner, and you can land. I've had a small little red carpet put out, of my little two-seater experimental airplane, and they'll treat you just like they do, Pip if he lands in a Hawker or a Phenom, and it's just the coolest thing. The freedom is just very different.
So I think all GA pilots here in the UK, we've all flown Cessnas and the Pipers and stuff. Obviously, Pipers low wing, and the Cessna being a high wing. Have you a favourite? Do you prefer the high wing or the low wing GA aircraft?
Yeah, not really. Each one is great. So I ended up flying for the Civil Air Patrol as an adult. The Civil Air Patrol in the U.S. does search and rescue. They do disaster relief. They do counter drug, border patrol. So in those cases, the high wing is definitely better, right? You're trying to look down. You're trying to take pictures. You're trying to, we do a lot of fire lines and just talking down to the ground. But there really is nothing like a low wing airplane, and you feel like you're in an airliner or a fighter jet and something like that. And so I'll go either way, just depending on what I'm trying to do that day.
So we're going to hand over the chat room. Nev, you got some questions from the chat room?
Yes, we're going to have a good look at the chat room. We've got some questions for you, Armando. And Shorty Cosgrove asks, what is your favourite airplane?
Ooh, all-time favourite airplane is actually the A-26 Invader. Okay. I just think it's a beautiful airplane, and it sounds great.
It's the noise, isn't it?
It is the noise.
Some of these
the radios.
It's a great sounding beast.
And from Tony S asks, what advice would you give to youngsters wanting to get involved in aviation?
Well, there's certainly organizations like the Air Cadets and the Civil Air Patrol. In the U.S., we have the EAA, the Experimental Aircraft Association, that does Young Eagles programs. There's all kinds of organizations. The key is to invest early in their education, get them in the air, and just get them done as soon as possible. They'll get the bug, right? So their first flight, every young person's going to get the bug. And we've seen that at the air shows at Riot and Farnborough and every other air show. They're just in wonder. You just have to capitalize on that just wonder right off the bat and just get them done. That would be my advice.
Yeah, and Richard Adams asks, how does our airspace compare? Obviously, it's very crowded in the south compared to where you've been flying previously, I guess.
Yeah. That's especially true because I moved here from the sort of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona area where there is no airspace. You could literally just take off without a radio from an uncontrolled field and just go. In fact, my friends and I from New Mexico used to go out and just fly low level. We'll fly the canyons and we'll fly safely, of course. But
of course.
But it was definitely spirited flying. Pretending we're fighter pilots and whatnot. It's just much more open. However, I was still surprised in the UK the amount of uncontrolled airspace that you can sort of navigate around. It's crowded, but it's not infringing upon anything. You just have to sort of plan around it.
Yeah. And Richard asks again, have you got any lessons learned stories from aviation, near misses or things that you might have been involved with in previously where you've been able to learn lessons from it?
Just kind of like everybody else. So I ended up buying an airplane, which is affordable in the UK. Yeah. Wow. When you live in the middle of the desert, the one thing you want to do is get out of where you live and go. So I was actually I ended up buying a Lancair 360 experimental, which there's a bunch in Europe and there's a bunch in the US. The airplane gets a bad rap. If you just Google the Lancair 360, there's all kinds of articles about people having mishaps in them. And really what I learned, my biggest lesson learned is just take your time. Don't rush. Use all those tools that they give you in your PPL training to do sort of a risk assessment. Everything is just playing what if, and then just plan for a contingency. And that's really the biggest thing. I've had all kinds of stuff happen, and I had an alternator go out and no electrics whatsoever in an experimental, and it was actually a complete non-issue. I had a handheld radio. I was flying with my brother. We got on the radio and called. In that case, it was Tallahassee, and just they declared an emergency for us, which I didn't know was a thing, because I was basically in a soda can with wings, and they had fire trucks all down the runway because they declared an emergency for us. So it was, I just consider it a nice welcome into Tallahassee.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Super friendly guys.
So moving on from the GA flying you do, then where did you go then to get to the position you're in now?
So same thing. Civil Air Patrol. I knew I was going to try to join the Air Force, to be the U.S. Air Force, to be a pilot. At the time, it didn't work out so well. So I ended up getting a job as a crew member. Most of my time, so now it's 21 years later. So I've been in the U.S. Air Force for 21 years. Probably about a third of that has actually been spent over here in the UK. But most of that has been in C-130s. That's really just the majority of my career, and then here in the UK flying some CV-22 Ospreys, which is kind of a neat airplane. It's fun explaining that to people at air shows. But so it's just been a great career that I'm very much looking forward to passing that off to the young guys, right? So the travel gets old after a little while.
You mentioned earlier, you talking that you'd been to some air shows actually as like the other side of the ropes. Do you have a favourite air show that you've been to where you've been that side of the rope? Is there an air show that really jumps out at you?
100% Riyadh.
Really?
Yeah, Riyadh, and I've done air shows in the U.S. Doing static displays. Riyadh was just impressive. The logistics, the precision that the ground crews, the flight crews, or the flight support crews, everything was just. I think we landed, and 20 minutes later, they already had our departure information for 4 days later. They gave us a cup of coffee, and the transportation was already set up, and hotels were set up. Rental cars were waiting for us.
Wow.
The Riyadh, from the behind-the-scenes point of view, was nothing short of just impressive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Felt very welcome.
Yeah. And the interaction with the other countries' air forces was great. The Dutch Air Force and the French Air Force, the RAF. We, at the end of the day, all the differences go, by the wayside, and once the crowd leaves, we all just end up hanging out and talking.
I bet the mess is quite a laugh.
Yeah.
I bet there's some stories that you're not allowed to tell from there. Yeah.
I've been at the end of the day at a Riyadh and walked past the kind of the Polish or the Czech C-130s, and there's just been like a pallet load of beer and loud music. And kind of stuff.
I think that the Dutch bring a bar with them.
Wow.
That is actually on a pallet and everything, and it's great. It's just a great camaraderie event, and despite what goes on in politics or anything, the air crews themselves are just all there to have fun, show off their airplanes to the crowds, and really it's the crowds that make it, right? So just interacting with the people all day long, and they're long days, right? Because you only bring one crew. So you're there for 12, 13, 14 hours. So it's having a beer at the end of the day is
and to be fair,
well deserved.
It's well deserved. Yeah.
Like I say, and sun isn't much of a problem here in the UK. So it's not like you've got sunstroke or anything by the end of it.
Yeah, right. Usually it's just dry mouth from given it's the same 15-second sort of speech, but you're giving it 800 times a day. So.
Absolutely. So Armando, have you got any from your career? Have you got any highlights or certain events that just stand out as being, one of those? Wow, this is awesome.
There's just so many. A 20-year flying career. There's not one that stands out. We've been struck by lightning over the Gulf of Mexico. Like we were saying earlier, I've seen the Northern Lights from northern Norway. Mount Etna, seeing that from the air on night vision goggles is pretty cool. And there's I don't think there's any one that stands out. It's just it's just been a great ride.
So Nev, have we got any more questions from the floor?
Yeah,
have you got any
questions? The chat room, and Lane Street asks, you've got your twin endorsement. So what ratings have you got?
So they're all FAA ratings, and it's private and commercial certificates with multi-engine, single engine, and instrument, and then all the endorsements, or what we call endorsements. So it's high performance, tail wheel, complex aircraft.
Wow.
Excellent.
So cool.
That is pretty awesome.
Well,
so what's the plan for the future then, Armando? What's the big thing for the future? Have you got any kind of big plans in the burner, in the back burner, as we say?
Well, the plan is every pilot just kind of dreams of retiring and running a flight school or something like that. So as I wrap up my military career, the idea is to go fly. Pip's gonna kill me or Al's gonna kill me, but I want to go fly cargo. I do want to be a vampire. That actually sounds great to me. That's real flying. That's your takeoff at sunset, usually into the weather, usually at night, horrible weather. But I like the idea of being home in the morning and then having a regular life where you can actually spend time with friends and family. And my family's back in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. So I like that. And then probably just get a couple friends together and start a little business where we move airplanes around the world or do some flight instruction, something like that.
So there's one last question then. We always ask all our pilots who come on the show. Nev, what's that question?
Yes, if there was any aircraft that you could fly, either current or one that is no longer current, what would it be?
Oh, while I do love the A26, I think my number one would be a B-25. I would just love to, I remember watching Mel Gibson in Forever Young. And
so I'm going to be slightly controversial here. Maybe so obviously, I mean, your background is military, obviously, but so is there any commercial aircraft that you just simply love to have a go of that is either retired or non-existent?
TriStar.
Yeah.
No.
It is a Lockheed product, though.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Yeah, it is the Constellation. Would be
Connie.
Yeah. Number one commercial airplane. I would love to. Heck, just even step on one, but fly one would be even better.
Be amazing.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Well, we can't thank you enough for coming over the way, because it's not been the best weather conditions to be doing it. So to still come over here has just been absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
What should have been an hour drive turned into 2. So
thank you for coming on the show with us this week. It's been.
And it is, I'm afraid, where we've got to really start wrapping things up, purely and simply for no other reason, because Captain Jeff, the legend that is Captain Jeff, who's currently in the chat room from APG, is saying, would you please wrap this thing up? I'm trying to edit APG, and this is far too much of a distraction. So that's it. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is, unfortunately, where we need to bring things to a close. How do they get in touch with the show, Carlos?
Well, you can take yourselves over to our website, www.planetalkinguk.com. You can click on there. You can find the tabs to buy yourself a PTUK t-shirt. And you can also find the links to Patreon if you want to donate a few pennies to the show and help to run the show. You can find the links on there. You can also find us out on Twitter at Plane Talking UK on Twitter, and of course on Facebook as well. Find us on there, and don't forget our YouTube channel as well.
Indeed, it's youtube.com/Plane Talking UK is where you'll find that. Nev, how do they get in touch by email?
Email is podcast@planetalkinguk.com, and that's monitored by the three of us, and we really do try and respond to you as quickly as we can.
We do indeed, yes. So that is, I'm afraid, where we have to bring episode 206 to a close. Again, thank you, Armando, for
Armando. Big round of applause. Well done.
Absolutely. Owen, thank you. Yes. Absolutely. And that is where we bring it to a close. So we will see everybody. Watch the old Facebook and Twitter feeds to find out when we're going to be doing next week's show.
And hopefully next week we have got another guest lined up for the show. Yes, we do. Yeah.
So watch social media for all the details. That's where we.
And he flies Boeing. Anyway.
Oh dear. Right. So from all of us here in the studio, and from the legend that is Nev in Buckinghamshire, and the lovely
Sir Nev,
the legend that is. is. It's time to say goodbye. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys.